quite like to wear that armor. I was speaking to someone earlier from the Clone Wars. I think that would be something that I'd enjoy, but I was figuring out with someone in the autograph queue today that would mean I'd have to be younger, I'd have to be younger. But they can do... No? I'm good.
This is a very popular choice.
Maybe I just trim the beard a bit or something? Yeah, we'll be fine.
Please welcome to the stage moderator Tiffany Babb and Ewan McGregor! You're welcome.
Hello there. Bloody hell.
That is a lot of people and a lot of lightsabers.
Wow. Hello.
I don't know if you can tell, but there's a lot of Star Wars fans here.
Yeah, I've just been stuck behind a black curtain all day. I didn't know that this was all out here, Blue Man Group over there. How's it going? Good? All right.
You have recently returned to the world of Star Wars. What has that been like to go back into it?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been really like a relief almost. It was a long time ago that we made the last prequel. In 2003, we shot the last one. So to come back, I guess it was like almost 20 years later. But it felt good. It felt really. I really liked making the series with Deborah Chow, who's just a brilliant director and a great leader of that whole. She directed all of those episodes, and she really understands the world of Star Wars, and she really honed the script. She did all the work on the, working with the writers to sort of hone the series, and I think she did a brilliant job. And it was lovely to work with her, and a great cast, and it was good. It was good fun.
Did you feel like you were returning to the same character, or did you feel like it was a different character now that it's been years?
Well, yeah, no, it felt like it had to be the same. It felt like the same character, just older and a bit tireder, I don't know where I drew that from, but it very much felt like it had to be him. And I always think of, when I did the first ones, I must have been like 25 or 6 or something when we started. And the challenge there was to be Alec, to be a young Alec Guinness. And so I always start with Alec. It's such a lovely job to have, to sit and watch his movies. And that's where I always start. So that's what I did this time. I started watching Alec Guinness I watched all the Star Wars films, all of them. I hadn't necessarily seen all the sequels, so I watched all 9 films, and then I went back and then I studied Alec's. I got them to put Alec's scenes together for me, just his scenes, and I would watch that and watch that and watch that. And for me, it just has to feel like him when I'm doing a take as Obi-Wan. If it feels a bit like I can imagine Alec in the room, then I'm happy. And if it doesn't, I'll always ask for another go until it. I'm not trying to impersonate him, but just like it has to feel like him a bit,
It's a vibe thing.
Yes,
vibe.
Exactly.
Speaking of the original trilogy, your uncle Dennis Lawson played Wedge Antilles in those films.
Look at the size of that thing.
When you first got cast, did you call him up and ask him for advice?
Well, yes, of course. My uncle is my acting sort of... he's my hero anyway, and he was an actor. I came from a very small town in Scotland, and it's not really the kind of place you would imagine becoming an actor from, But my uncle had done it. He grew up there, and he went off to become an actor in the theatre, and then on television, and then he made his film... Does anyone remember Local Hero? The movie Local Hero? Fantastic. If you haven't seen it, it's worth a watch. It's a really, really good film. And that was his sort of biggest movie role. And somewhere in the middle of all that mix, he did a few weeks on Star Wars. You know, I think they got... well, George shot the first ones in London, you know, in Elstree, I think. And so all of the London-based actors got cast in little parts and stuff. And so my uncle ended up as Wedge. And he actually survived all the first three movies, you know. I can't remember if they brought him back for the sequel or if they used his voice. I think maybe they shot with him for a day. Yes, of course, I spoke to him about it, and it was an odd one. You might think it would be like a no-brainer, but it wasn't a no-brainer for me at the time. I'd only done 4 or 5, 6 movies, and I was involved in Danny Boyle's. I felt like Danny Boyle's actor. You know, I made Shallow Grave with Danny, and then we made Trainspotting, and then we made a third film called A Life Less Ordinary here in the States. And I felt like more than anything I was Danny Boyle's actor. That was really like the most important thing to me. I felt like I was part of something new and important. Like Shallow Grave left a mark on British cinema, and Trainspotting left a mark on global cinema. And so that was my priority, and I fancied myself as somewhat of a sort of indie, urban, grungy type actor. And I still rather do, I think. But, so this was it was a departure, Star Wars, and also just the idea of it was so massive. You can imagine as a young actor, you know, it had been a long, long time since the last of the original movies. I don't remember what year that was. Someone will know. I mean, somebody must know. Thank you.
Time.
83? Okay, so it'd been since 83, and we were in the 90s, weren't they? Late 90s when we were starting to do the prequels. So it's been a long time. So the pressure of that, and so it was important to speak to Dennis about it. I won't necessarily tell you what he said because it wasn't entirely positive, but anyway. He's at the moment doing one of these in Nashville. He's doing a Comic-Con in Nashville now. So, you know, we're both Comic-Conning around now, Dennis and I, which is nice.
That's nice. Have you done a show together yet?
Yes, we have. We did. We were both in San Francisco together, and we did one in Edinburgh together, and that was been really fun. Yeah, it's been nice.
Was the transition from being a Danny Boyle actor to Star Wars, was that huge? Was that weird, going onto set and it's a whole different kind of production?
I mean, I think as an actor, every job is different from the last. At least they should be. And so they're always different. Every role demands a different part of you, and every role has different sort of technicalities involved. This was the first film like this this is the only thing like this. So, but it was the first time I'd ever done this much sort of blue screen work, or, you know, acting with things that aren't there. Work, you know, with a tennis ball and a stick, and then, or, you know, that was the first time I'd ever done that kind of work. But I think the responsibility is always the same. You always just have to be believable in that role, in that story, and so everything's always going to feel different. It didn't feel like a different job. I didn't have to be a different actor or anything. No, I don't think so.
You've done a lot of Star Wars now, especially with the show. Is there anything in the Star Wars universe that you would like to do that you haven't done yet?
Obi-Wan Season 2. Yes! Someone booing? Someone booed. Who booed? You don't want it? He doesn't want Season 2. I don't know this guy. I don't know. I think there's definitely a couple of things. I quite like to wear that armor. I was speaking to someone earlier from the Clone Wars. I think that would be something that I'd enjoy, but I was figuring out with someone in the autograph queue today That would mean I'd have to be young. I'd have to be younger. But they can do. No. I'm
This is
good.
a very popular choice.
Maybe I just trim the beard a bit or something. Yeah, we'll be fine. Otherwise, it's like having those. It's the de-aging. It's the dots on your face for 3 months. But I'll do it. I don't care. I think. Yeah. And that way, Hayden and I can really get back together again. Okay, so there's that. So there's definitely that is one idea. And the other one is, obviously, between the end of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series and when Alec Guinness is Obi-Wan Kenobi, there's got to be another few stories in there. And we're definitely exploring that, I think, would be the word to say.
Exciting.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I'll take you with me when I go and see Disney. Say, he wants me, this guy. Okay, I'm coming back.
So you've been in a lot of movies with big stylistic visions, like Big Fish, Moulin Rouge, Beginners. Lots of fans. What is it like performing in a movie with a very specific stylistic vision versus something more naturalistic?
It's all the same. I always try and find. I think I've always been looking for something that's got a little bit sort of extra, either sort of magical quality or, like with Moulin Rouge, the music and just the sort of romance of it. There's something that really appealed to me, like in the old films that I used to watch when I was a kid. I love it. So I'm always looking for something that's got that little extra quality. But the job is always the same, Like I say, there's a writer that writes something, and that's what we read. That's what the director reads, and that informs us as to what is this? What world are we in? What the sort of nature of the thing? And then so everything is unique, really. So there's some things you approach where you have to learn something, like, I don't know, you have to learn the bagpipes, or you have to learn to unicycle, or you have to learn French or something in order to play this character. And then there's other times where you're playing somebody that's actually lived. You're playing somebody who's real. I've done that a few times. I played Halston, who was a real person. 3 people. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. Thank you, those 3 people. And in the past, I played Nick Leeson, who was a trader that brought down Bering's Bank. So when you're playing somebody who's actually existed, then you can watch their videos or read their writing or whatever. And that's that. And then other things you just are come straight out of your imagination. So there's different sort of lead up to roles, but at the onset it's always the same job, I guess.
That's really interesting. Speaking of unique movies, you played Sebastian J. Cricket in Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, or you voiced him. I read that the role was smaller before you signed on. Is that true?
I don't know. This is how. I think it was just about lockdown when I recorded the song for Pinocchio in a caravan in my garden with a mic during lockdown, because we just had to do everything remotely, But when I went in to see Guillermo to do the first, I thought I was just going in for a meeting to meet him, to talk about it. I hadn't been sent the script or anything, so I thought, he must just want to talk to me about it. So I arrived at this sound studio up near where the studios are in Hollywood. And I walked in, and I was in a recording studio, and there was loads of people behind the glass. And Guillermo's like, "Hey, how are you doing? It's nice to see you." He takes me to the lectern where there's the script and the microphone, and he goes, "We'll start in your own time." And I made a big mistake, because I didn't tell him. I just thought, okay, I'm just going to do it. But I had no idea. I didn't know who this Jiminy Cricket was. I knew who the old one was, but so I just started to sort of blag my way through it as best I could until I realized that I was going nowhere, and I stopped him and I said, "Guillermo, can I speak to you in here?" And he came in. I was almost in tears, like I was so embarrassed, and he sat down and I said, Guillermo, I haven't read the script. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just making it up. And he did a lovely thing. He just sent everyone away for a minute, and he sat down and he told me that his version of what he was trying to do. He sort of pitched me the story, told me about how he saw the character, and then I knew what I was doing then. You know, I knew at least who I was trying to play, and then we got on with it. And a lot of what you hear in the film is from that original, you know, day when I'd had like 5 minutes preparation for it, you know. But it was fun. I love him, and I love the films he's made. I've always been a big fan of his work, and so I was so lucky to get to work with him.
It was a beautiful film. So you sang, you just mentioned singing. You sang in this film. You sang in Moulin Rouge. You once played Sky Masterson in Guys and Dolls. Will you do another musical?
I'd love to. I would love to. I just haven't been offered any. I mean, it's not like I haven't wanted to do it. There aren't many around. I mean, there's not many musical movies made. There are some. And I would love it. I tell you what, there was nothing like singing on set of Moulin Rouge. I'll never forget walking through the tango with the dancers going side to side, you know, and all that angst. And I loved it. I loved doing it. So, yeah, I would hope there will be more. I just don't know. They just haven't come my way yet, but maybe they will.
Fingers crossed. Now that it's out in the universe, hopefully.
Yeah.
Speaking of singing, you also did Down with Love with Renee Zellweger. Thank you. This question feels very for me at this moment. You mentioned you're a fan of old Hollywood. Are you a big classic movie fan? Is that?
Yes. I mean, I just grew up watching movies, and I love watching. I mean, I am a bit nostalgic, I think, so I do love watching older movies. And yeah, definitely loved all those comedies, Rock Hudson, Doris Day, Pillow Talk, all of those. I loved them. I sort of got it. As when I read Down with Love, I knew what it was about. Yeah, I certainly did. And it's nice. Peyton Reed, the director, is still a good friend of mine. Renee, I see now and again. I'm always happy to see her when I do. And yeah, it was a great experience making that film. It was something really, again, that sort of extra layer of magic on top that I'm always hoping to find.
And you did a big dance number in that. I was wondering, training, I mean, you were kind of talking about this earlier, but training for a big dance number versus training for a fight, is it very different? Is it the same? Are you just kind of following along?
Well, I think the fight rehearsals for the latest Obi-Wan series were really intense. And we went for like a good few months before we started filming. We were working in the fight gym 3 times a week, just for fitness as much as anything else, but also learning, drilling all the moves, all the different, it was really well done. Jojo, our fight coordinator, did a really amazing job at sort of training us, and then slowly learning the choreography for the fights. And then once you start learning the choreography, it does become a bit like learning a dance. It's the same, you have to be in the right place at the right time on the right leg, and so it's similar in a way. Yeah, it just doesn't hurt quite as much when you get it wrong in a dance as it does with a lightsaber. Hayden and I will tell you, like in the prequels, our knuckles were like, because we were using metal blades on the lightsabers then. They used the plastic. They're not dissimilar to the ones you have here that we fight with now, and they actually light up now and stuff. And in the prequels, they didn't. We had sort of some alloy blade, and there was a guy on the corner of the set whose job it was to just change the blades after every take. And Hayden and I, particularly Hayden and I, when we fought together, would just bet every take we'd have to have a new sword because we'd bend the blades. We just went at each other really hard. And there's no hilt on these. George Lucas thought we didn't need a hilt in his wisdom. And a hilt stops your knuckles getting wrapped when you get it wrong. So we didn't have one. We just got sore knuckles all the time, Thank you, George.
What was the biggest technological change between filming the prequels and filming the show?
What was the biggest change?
You mentioned the lightsabers were different. Were there other
Yes,
big...
the biggest change was we used that thing called the volume, which is like a 300-degree wraparound. It's probably about as big as this area here, to where you guys are. It wraps around. It's almost 360, but not quite. And the backgrounds are projected onto it Well, no, they're not projected on it. They're played on it. And when you point a camera at them and move the camera, it alters the depth of field and stuff in the image. And so when you're acting on that stage, there's no blue screen anymore, no green screen, which I'm not a fan of. I don't know if you've ever read any of my interviews about the prequels, but I wasn't a great fan of the blue screen environment. And this just takes it away. Suddenly, if you're in the desert, well, you feel like you're in the desert. Or if you're in, we had in episode 2 or 3 of the series, we were in this big city with towering skyscrapers and stuff, and it felt, you walk in, you're sort of in that environment already. So that was a massive difference. But everything else was, on the second episode, the second prequel, we used the first ever digital cameras. We shot the first one on film, and the second one, we had these early generation digital cameras with huge cables coming out the back of them into a tent in the corner that sort of hummed, It was so new at the time. And now, of course, we've got digital cameras in our phone. You could shoot Star Wars on that. He's shooting Star Wars on it right now. All right.
In a couple of years, it'll be 30 years of Trainspotting.
There's no need to say that. Okay.
A few years ago, you reunited for T2, but do you all stay in contact? Are you in a text group?
There is a little, because Trainspotting's used in, it crops up all the time. Political campaigns use the poster for Trainspotting. There was one recently in Britain when there was the general election that had all the British MPs, all the Conservative MPs on, like with their heads on our shoulders from the poster, And so there's a little email group with all of us on it that we sort of post, we talk to each other about those kind of things. And so we do keep in touch. We did joke when we did T2, because that was 20 years after we made the first one. We did joke about doing a third one in our 70s, when we're all in the sort of geriatric home for ex-drug users, from Scotland. Back on the drugs, it might be.
The Full Monty just did a TV show, so you could always do a Trainspotting TV show.
Yes, there's every opportunity. I hope so. I do love those guys so much, and that film was an amazing experience to be in that film. And so we're all bonded together forever, the cast and Danny Boyle, and it's an amazing. I'm very, very proud of that one.
Trainspotting, iconic film. To today, very recently, you got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
What was that day like?
Who's the booer? Is it someone I pissed off in the past?
I think it's like a deep woo.
It's a deep what?
It's a deep woo. Like it's a cheer.
A woo. Deep. Oh, it sounds to me like a boo from up here.
Yeah.
Okay. I got a star.
What was that day like?
Oh, it was fun. It was really. I had no idea what to expect from it. To be honest, I didn't really know what it would mean until I saw it on the. They reveal it. The best thing was I had all my family there. I had my kids. I was with my wife Mary, and Esther, my daughter, wasn't able to be there because she was shooting she's acting in a series in Canada at the time, so she wasn't able to be there. But so that was a great shame, because other than that, I had all my kids there, and it was a real family day. It was really nice. Yeah, it was nice. And when they revealed it, and you see your name down there, it was like a moment. I went, oh, God almighty, that's a star with my name on it. It was good. It was nice. And I like the idea that it's there. And the best thing is, it's right next to Carrie Fisher's. Yeah.
I was just going to ask about your neighbors, your star neighbors. That's like the perfect star neighbor.
I loved Carrie so much. I met Carrie. We became friends. I was so lucky to know her because I loved her so much. As a child, I was, deeply in love with her when I was, as a lot of men my age probably in this room will say they were as well. And when I met her, we had, of course, I'd done Star Wars by this time, so we had that in common. And she used to make me laugh. So she was so funny. We co-hosted during the Oscars and stuff. There's people like throw parties for a movie to try and we ended up co-hosting stuff at her house, which was just always such a laugh. Yeah, it's a great shame that we lost Carrie, really. But anyway, I couldn't believe that I was lucky enough to be right next to her on the Walk of Fame. That's nice.
That's incredible. Star Wars history. It's passing. It keeps going. It's the amazing thing, right?
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of motorcycle-based projects, documentaries. What drives you to do this long-term motorcycle travel? Like, what is it?
Just like a glutton for punishment or something. I don't know. I started doing. I've always ridden motorbikes. I love riding motorbikes. And I started doing sort of trips when I finished a movie. It's so intense making a film, and there's so many people around, and also as an actor, all of your sort of decision making as a human being is sort of removed from the equation, you know. So you're told, we'll pick you up tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning, and you'll be taken to. You don't have to think about where you're going. You arrive. You know somebody's telling you these are the scenes you're going to shoot. Someone asks you what you'd like for your lunch. You know, you don't have to really think about anything other than the job at hand. I suppose that's why. So at the end of it, there's a sort of reintegration into real life when you have to start doing all those things for yourself again. And I thought so I started taking motorbike trips. Like the first one I remember was in Australia after Star Wars. No, after Moulin Rouge, or maybe in the middle of Moulin Rouge. Took a long bike trip there. And then after Big Fish in Alabama, I bought myself a Harley Davidson down in Alabama, and I rode it back to LA when we finished. It took me 4 or 5 days, and I thought it was a fantastic way to sort of decompress, you know. And all of my decision making was back on my own shoulders at that point. Like, where do I stop? Where do I get petrol? What do I have to eat? All of those things. It made me sort of a human being again. And I just stuck with it. And then Charlie and I, my friend, were talking about doing a trip to Spain or something. And from that point I was living in London. And it's great to ride to Spain, that's fine. But I read this book called Jupiter's Travels, written by a guy called Ted Simon. And it changed my life, really, because he rode around the world in 1971 or 72, which is when I was born. But he did it on a Triumph, and it took 4 years to do it. And he wrote this beautiful book, Jupiter's Travels. It's a really lovely book to read. You don't have to be into bikes to read it. It's just a great book about the world. And I started talking to Charlie about that. Like, why don't we... My ex-wife was brought up in China, and I thought maybe we'll ride to China, from London. And then I was looking at the map, going, well, what do we do? What do we do when we get there? Just come back? And so I got a world map. And I was looking at the world map, London, China, and then I just thought, if you keep going and you come on this page over here, you come back to London, and it's pretty much a straight line. And so that became our first trip, Long Way Round, which is available on Apple TV Plus or Apple TV, whatever it's called. And that changed our lives, because we did that in 2004. We did the whole African continent in 2007. We did the Americas in 2019. And then we just did another one that we just finished this summer, which is our 4th trip, which will be on the television next year, I think.
That's exciting. So tune in. What's the longest one you've... I assume it's
I think
China.
Long Way Round was the longest. It was over 20,000 miles, and it was like 4.5 months. Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, we went through some pretty amazing places. We rode through Kazakhstan, which is a fantastically different place, from our sort of cultural understanding, and then we crossed Russia, and we crossed Mongolia, and I loved lots of the first trip. It was brand new to us. We didn't know really what we were doing, but we had a great time.
Do you have a dream trip that you want to do that you haven't done yet?
I'd have places I'd like to go back to. I'd love to go back to Mongolia. I met my daughter on the first trip in Mongolia. I met her in this place and adopted her, and she's 23 years old now. And I'd love to go back there with her again and explore Mongolia a little bit. I'd love to go back to Alaska. I loved Alaska. I thought that was so cool. The northwestern part of Canada I really liked. There's still lots of places in America that I haven't experienced and explored, and I'd love to do that. I think traveling on a bike is by far one of the greatest ways to get to know anywhere, you know. So yeah, lots more trips to go to, I think.
How do you handle the weather? Is like the first question that comes to my brain.
Yeah, well, you just have to sort of. The riding kit you can buy these days is sort of, you're good to go. You've got you've got vents if it's hot. It's already waterproof, and you can put layers on if it's cold. And you just have to be able to stay dry really on a bike. I mean, if it's too cold, you just have to stop. There's no point riding if you're freezing. It's probably quite dangerous to do. So you'd stop and you'd have a cup of coffee and heat up a bit. It's the wet, really. You just have to make sure you've got a really good waterproof layer, and then you're all right. Speaking
of important clothes, what is your favorite costume that you've ever worn in your entire career?
Ooh. Which one? What?
Christoper Robin.
You see, it's not fair to have favorites. I don't have favorites because it just wouldn't be fair to them, you know. I've loved so many. I'm really lucky. I've loved so much of the work I've done. There's very few movies I've made that I didn't enjoy. There's a couple, but there's not many. And so I don't like to single them out, really. If people ask, what's your favorite movie you've been in? I never know what to say. I've loved so many of them. There's films that have been important to me, but in terms of the costume, I mean, Obi-Wan is so iconic. I mean, it's just hard to beat that. When I came back to do the series, you know, it had been, like I say, it had been a long time, almost 20 years. And I went down to do some casting with some of the young actors who were in the series. And they wanted me to read scenes with them. We went to the Mandalorian set on a Sunday when they weren't working, and I went to a dressing room, and there was I don't know if it was my original costume, but it was Obi-Wan's costume hanging up, and it stopped me in my tracks. I was like, oh my God. And I put it on again, and I was like, oh my God, the boots were the same pain in the ass to put on that they used to be and stuff. And but anyway, so that one maybe is the most iconic one I've had to wear. But I've been lucky to love most of the stuff I've done, so I wouldn't like to pick it.
If you don't have a favorite role, what do people recognize you for the most, like when you're walking down the street?
People mostly come up to me with my bike trip now because that's me, you know. And I think people, because that's just me being me, and so people are happy to talk about that in a way where I'm not a character in something. Today it's been robots. Everyone's been talking about robots today. I voiced a character in Rodney Copperbottom, and today that's been the main feature of the day. It's interesting.
That's very exciting. It's like a themed day.
Yeah.
When you prepare for a voice role like Cricket or Transformer, how is that different from when you prepare for something live action?
Well, that's different because you get to do every line. Generally speaking, the disappointing part about animations is that you tend to do it on your own. Like you go to a studio and it's just you there and the director and the producers, and so you don't often get a chance to actually play the scenes with the other actors, just because of logistics, I guess. But what you do get the chance to is to do that one line over and over and over again until you're all happy with it, you know. Which isn't the same as if you're doing something on a camera. Of course, you do several takes, but you're not honing in to try and make it perfect. And that's what makes it different. That's also, for me, what makes it a bit frustrating, because you end up doing it for a long time, you know. And like over 2 years, you'll come in, because I think you're there doing animation while you're doing the recording, and then they keep getting you to come back to change lines or to change things. So that goes on for a long time. I like to be in and out, you know. I like to do a job and then I'm on the next one, you know. So. And
then you're on your bike.
And then I'm on my bike, yeah.
When you're walking around or when you're signing, taking photos, do you have any favorite fan interactions?
Do I have any favorite
fan interactions? When people have interactions.
Oh, interactions. Sorry, I thought you said attractions. I was thinking there aren't any attractions. I love it. I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I do. I really, you know, I didn't do any of this until Anaheim, when the series was released a while back. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I just had never done a convention. I didn't know what I thought it was, but I didn't think I wanted to do that. And then when I did, I said, because we were there anyway, I said, okay, I'll sign some autographs, I'll take some pictures. But I really liked it. It's just nice to meet you all. And I know it's always too short, and it's frustratingly short for us, as it must be for you. But there's these huge queues, and they just try and move everyone through as quickly as they can. But we always try and to share a moment, so at least you've met somebody, and I've always enjoyed meeting you all. So it's puts a face to the people who like films, and I like making them, and you like watching them, and we get to meet each other. It's nice. Yeah. Boo.
Speaking of making films, television shows, we're in LA. I assume there's a lot of aspiring actors out here. Do you have any advice for them?
I don't know. I don't really know. I think the best thing is to do it as much as you can, like work, make films with your friends. We're in a world where there's so much, it's so easy now to be able to do, with like I say, with an iPhone you can make a movie. Right? I think watch stuff. Like, it's amazing how many young actors don't. Everyone has their generational references, right? And I appreciate that. And I was born in the 70s, and the movies of the 70s were particularly good. So when I was a child, I got to see amazing movies, and I wanted to watch older ones. And I knew a lot of the older, the actors of the 40s and 50s, the Hollywood stars in Hollywood's heyday. Sort of knew who they were, and I loved, like, Jimmy Stewart's one of my favorite actors of all time. I love all his work. I like watching him, and I think as a young actor, you should be as open as you can to it. Watch as much as you can. Watch Laurence Olivier in something. Like, it's sort of not how we do it anymore, but watch it anyway, because that's what was really good then. And Alec Guinness, like the films that Alec Guinness was in. I mean, he was known for Star Wars, but there's like a whole lifetime of amazing work before he put a beige cloak on, I can assure you. And I love watching all that stuff. I think you can learn by watching people that are really good at things. And so trying to act as much as you can in things, on stage, in front of a camera, poetry readings, I don't care what it is. I used to do a lot of music at school. I used to perform. I was a French horn player. I was in the school pipe band. I did poetry readings, anything that put me in front of an audience, just because I wanted to perform, and that was all part of learning about how you do that. And so there's lots of things you can do. But I know it's a frustrating place. LA is quite frustrating because there's a lot of people want to be in the business here, and there's not a great, like in New York, there's so much theatre. In London, there's a lot of theatre. There's not the same sort of it's not quite the same here. So you sort of have to go up to make it happen yourselves, which you can do. I'm available if you need me. I can help.
Other than Jimmy Stewart, who else is on your list of kind of inspirational actors or favorite films?
Well, yeah, I've got some of my favorite films are sort of. Do you remember the film Breaking Away? Does anyone remember that, with the cyclist, the four mates? They've just finished high school and they don't know what they're doing. They're the son of stonemasons in this town. And is it what? Cutters. They're cutters. But are they in Minneapolis or Indiana? Oh my God! It was one of my favorites. One of them dreams of being a cyclist, and he pretends he's Italian because all his favorite cyclists are Italian. And he meets this beautiful college girl he's not a college kid. He's a cutter, he's a working class boy in this college town. And he meets this beautiful student girl, and he pretends he's Italian because there's no way that she would speak to him if she knew he was a cutter. And oh my God, it's a beautiful film. That was one of my favorite films growing up. But I also loved, I loved all the old, I loved The Great Escape, and I loved The Getaway, Steve McQueen. I love those 70s movies. The 70s movies are pretty Everyone references 70 movies because they were so good, you know.
What do you think has been kind of what are the biggest changes that you've seen in the industry as an actor?
I mean, at the moment, it's all over the place. I don't know, because we had the streaming platforms come in, and then so everyone was making TV series and not making movies, and then because everyone's got the streaming services in their homes, less and less people are going to the cinema, so nobody knows how to gauge anything anymore, you know. It used to be, like I read this morning, there's an article about a big movie that's just opened. They were talking about a terrible opening weekend. And I was thinking, what is an opening weekend anymore? You know, there isn't such a thing, because people generally aren't going to the cinema so much anymore. So I think it's a massive change at the moment, but I think that's just par for the course. Things change all the time. And out of it will come something better. It's nice to be able to have access to everything that's ever been made on your remote control. I mean, that's pretty amazing to be able to do that. You can all go home and watch Breaking Away tonight, for instance. And yeah, so I think it's in a big flux at the moment. But the job, the game is the same. You know, we're still trying to make people feel things, and we're trying to make people think about things in order to make things change, or to make people happy, or make people realize that something bad is going on that maybe they hadn't thought about before. That's our job as entertainers and as artists, and I'm very glad to be one of them. You know, I feel it's a great privilege, and I'm lucky, and I thank my lucky stars every day.
You talked earlier about kind of finding that extra something in projects when you sign on. How do you notice, like, when you're reading a script, how do you pull that out? Like, this is special. It's
just your gut. It's my gut instinct. I've got no idea. I mean, I don't know. I think it's just you're reading it, and if you get that feeling like you're reading a good book and you don't want the book to end, that's what I'm looking for when I read a script. And I start seeing myself in the role, if I can start imagining me in this role, that's always a good sign. But it's difficult to know. I mean, you can't always be right, and you just have to follow your instincts at the end of the day.
That is really interesting. And jumping back to Star Wars, we were talking a little about kind of the family of Star Wars is growing, right? There are new shows, there are new actors joining into this world. You were talking about being at Star Wars Celebration a couple years ago. When you meet new actors who are joining, like, what's your advice for people who are kind of joining? Because it's big. I mean, this is pretty huge, yeah. Right? What's your advice for people stepping into that?
I don't have any. I don't think it's anyone's place to give advice, especially to actors. Actors come at this from all different walks of life and all different ways, and some people like to have a method, and other people go on their instincts, and everyone's coming at it from a different place. But at the end of the day, we all have the same responsibility. Me and Vivian, you know, in the series, you know, I'm in my 50s, and Vivian's just a kid. But yeah, we both have the same responsibility to be believable in these roles and to tell the story that the writer once told using our characters. And that's it. That's all. You know, it's not for me to give her advice, because she doesn't need it. She didn't need any. She could have given me some advice, I think, probably. But yeah, I don't have any advice, really. It's lovely being in. It's amazing to come into a big family like Star Wars and be part of something massive like this, to be part of something that means so much to people. That is an amazing thing, you know. And I think sometimes there can be a pressure because some of the characters have existed as cartoons, or they've existed in other ways, in books or something. But, you know, yeah, you just have to trust yourself and inhabit that character. Be them, you know. I don't know. I don't have any advice, really.
And as we wrap up today, do you have a favorite Star Wars memory? Big question.
My favorite memory, I don't know if I get in trouble telling it, though. My favorite memory is at the end of episode 3. What was the last one called? Something Sith? Revenge of the Sith? At the end of Revenge of the... I'm just terrified I get it wrong, so I thought I knew you'd know it. Do you know at the end when I arrive with the baby, with Luke, to Uncle Owen and Aunt Peru? So when I did that, we were in Australia, shooting in Australia in the studios, Fox Studios. And Charlie and Russ and Dave, the producers on the Long Way shows, had come to Australia because we were going to do our first one after Star Wars, like a year later or something. And we thought, why don't we shoot a little promo? So we rented a couple of Yamaha Teneres there in Australia, and we spent a weekend, probably wasn't allowed to, but we spent a weekend like riding these bikes around, and we went off-road, and we did a bit of camping and stuff, and we shot, it. So they were there doing that. And the day they arrived, or the next day, I was shooting that end scene. So I said, guys, this is the end. I'm giving Luke Skywalker to Uncle Owen and Aunt Peru. So you should come and watch. And they were like, oh, right. Yeah, we'll come. So I went down. They were down there. They went down before me. I came down. And now in the movie, I ride up on a Eope, I think it's called. I ride up, and I have to get off the horse, the Eope, and I have to walk over, and I give I think it's Uncle Owen's over there. I give the baby to Aunt Peru here. And Owen comes over, and we all look at the baby for a minute, and then I walk off, and I get on my Eope, and I ride away. So that was the scene. So I came down, and all my mates, Charlie and the boys, are sitting over here. It's an entirely blue set with a blue curtain all the way around, and there's a blue disc, which is a little hilltop here. And here, where we are, is a gym horse that's painted blue. It's all it is. It's a gym horse. It doesn't move. It's just a gym horse. That's all it is. So I have to someone helps me on it, and I'm on this gym horse like this, with a plastic baby like that. And George is over here and goes, action! And I have to go like this. That's the Eope walking, but it's not moving. I'm just pretending. It's like this. And then I think, that's probably far enough. So I stop it. Oh! And I know my mates are over there going... So I get off, and I jump down, and I walk over with the baby, and I pass the baby over, and Uncle Owen comes over. And I'm looking at them, and we all look at each other, and I think... That's good. And as I walk away, I hear George shouting, look at the moons! Look at the moons! And nobody knows where the moons are, right? So we're all going like this. Everyone's looking at a different moon, Suddenly there's 8 of them. And then I go back and I think, okay, now there's no one to help me get on the horse, so I go back over and I'm like, well, I have to go this way because I'm going that way now, right? So I have to go, and I get up. And I give him a wee look, and then I walk off like that. So that's my favorite bit.
That is an incredible story, and you have been an incredible guest. Everyone, please put your hands together for the amazing Ewan McGregor. And thank you all for coming.
You're just fantastic. I've loved speaking to you, and I'll see you, the guys tomorrow that I'll see tomorrow. And good night, LA. Cheers.
Thank you for watching this video. I am Invader Zim, and I traffic in doom. And so, if you do not subscribe to this channel, you will have doom that befalls you by me, Invader Zim.